Hello, welcome to this CCB video blog. Now today is another Throwback Thursday. This video might be from 11 years ago, but every fall I use the same exact technique to catch myself more and bigger fall bass. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Tips and Tricks. Now today I'm going to be telling you a good late fall tip in grassy, weedy lakes. Now when the water actually starts to hit about 65, cools off to 65 on its way to mid-50s and eventual turnover, from that point on those weeds are actually dying off. And yes, if you haven't had a lot of rain that's lifted the lake and those weeds will still be there and they look very tempting. But since they're dying off, the decomposition process is actually eating up all the oxygen in there, so those fish won't be in there. And if you do fish it, you're probably going to have a hard time finding fish and have to find a little pocket where maybe some is still alive. But what I found is, when that happens, start looking for secondary weeds that are out not very far, maybe 6-7 feet out in front of the edge of the visible surface weeds. And if you can find these weeds, you're in for a great fall. Because I ended up fishing this one lake, Margarita, and all of November, after the water, I started with the water in like 65 and fished it all the way up until the eventual turnover at about 57. And I was working a crankbait and I was fishing over the top of these secondary weeds that were up about 4 feet from the bottom, but still 6-7 feet under the water. And I was catching 10 to 11 fish a day. In the morning I was actually fishing over the top of it with a spook and catching a few fish that way. And we were getting ready to have a tournament on this lake, and the rest of our club did not want to fish this lake. Everyone was complaining that they couldn't catch fish, they couldn't get a bite, they were just not looking forward to this tournament. And what I found is most of them were still targeting those weeds they saw that were on top because they looked so tempting and they're still there. And then the rest of them, since the water was into the high 50s, had moved out and started fishing some of these the deeper ledges, thinking the fish had moved out, but they'd actually staged on these secondary weeds that were still alive and still producing oxygen. And everyone else was sort of, they never found it. I mean, basically I was fishing right where everyone else's boat was that was flipping into the weeds and throwing frogs on the weeds. And so if you have a lake that has a lot of weeds in it, you might not find these secondary weeds in front of all the surface weeds, but if you can find areas like that, like I said, try a crankbait or a spinnerbait or a jerkbait, but just work it over the top. And if you can get onto it from 65 down to the turnover, that whole time period, you might find yourself having some really good days. Until next time, I hope this helps.
That was terrific!
Great! Yeah! Best bait fantastic! Yeah, it's really great! Really pisky, yeah.